Welcome to the Motherhood Reimagined podcast, where we celebrate all paths to motherhood. I'm your host, Sarah Kowalski. Whether you're contemplating becoming a single mother, trying to be one, or already raising kids, this is the place for inspirational stories, expert advice, and informative guides celebrating those who didn't follow the rules as they share the heartache and joys of their paths. Be informed, be inspired, because you do not need to feel alone. Hey everyone, welcome to today's show. I just wanted to make a couple announcements before we get started. So first of all, I'm looking for more podcast guests. So if you're interested in being interviewed and sharing your story, please head on over to my podcast landing page. That's at motherhoodreimagined.com/podcast-home/. Or you can just go to my website, motherhoodreimagined.com, and follow the menu to podcast and find the sign-up form. If you have ideas for guests too, please shoot me an email at sarah@motherhoodreimagined.com and let me know who you think would be a great guest. The other announcement is that the Tribe Signature level membership is now live. You can go to my website again and follow the links for membership and go ahead and sign up. Right now I have a Thinkers Triers group and an egg donation, embryo donation support group. In these groups, you get weekly access to me via video call with the rest of the group, an online community to talk about what's coming up for you, as well as tons of done-for-you research and reflection exercises and really everything you need to kind of help you navigate this choice and this process without feeling alone. So I hope you will join me. Now let's get started with our guest. Today I'm joined by Christine. She has 2 kids that are in their teens and preteens, and so I'm excited to get her wisdom about raising kids as a single mother. Let's get started. Hi, Christine.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. And also how I grow old and age as teenagers.
Yes. So just to jump in, can you tell me a little bit about, as a child, what you thought your life was going to look like and what you expected?
Sure. I grew up in the Midwest, and so it was in the 70s. So it was kind of like, oh, I'm going to grow up, I'm going to get married, I'm going to have kids. And then through my life, I did things that sort of supported the love of children. So I was a babysitter, I was a camp counselor, I taught Sunday school. So all through my life, I was always with children. And then I moved out from the Midwest after college. I moved out to California and sort of started a whole new thought process.
And can you tell us a little bit about how that shifted when you moved?
Yeah, well, I think being a young person in your 20s and you are I was living in San Francisco at the time. So it's just like this whole thing of like, wow, this is exciting. Now I'm seeing parts of, like, my eyes are opening. I'm seeing lots of different things and people and meeting all kinds of stuff. I'm traveling, and all of a sudden my view of my world expanded. And so then kids just kind of kept getting pushed down the line. And then it was sort of like, well, now I want to see what I want to do in my career. And now I want to do this, and then I want to do that. And when I was 30, I changed from working as a recreation professional, and I became a firefighter.
Oh, wow.
So now at 30, I started a whole new career, and that was exciting. And I thought, okay, well, I tell you what, when I'm 35, if I'm not married, I'm going to go ahead and explore having children, because I knew I wanted to have children. Well, 35 came along, and I was still having a lot of fun. And so then I'm like, okay, you know what, 40, if I don't get married by the time I'm 40. And so this time around, I think it became more and more important. It came back into the forefront. And so when I was 39, I took about a year and went into therapy for a year and found a great therapist, really. And the main focus of the therapy was around looking at what I wanted to do and looking at why, the motivation, the fears, the excitement, why I was doing it. Was I ready to do it? And that was probably one of the best years I took. And so by the time, in fact, my 40th birthday, I believe I was 6 weeks pregnant. So
Wow.
it all came around.
Awesome. That's very cool. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got pregnant and how sort of that crucial time between the therapy and deciding and taking the leap and getting pregnant?
Well, I have to say, I think the biggest crucial time was the moment I realized, and I don't know if I read it on a single mom site, because at that point I was perusing. I wasn't on Facebook at that point, but I think there was some single mom like chat rooms out there, like through Yahoo. And I had joined those, and I was kind of lurking in the background and kind of just checking things out. And I don't remember if it was something I read in one of those or something that came up in therapy. But I realized that, you know what, I have a great social network and I have a great village of friends. And if I never got married, I'd be okay. You know, I mean, I'm active and I'm doing things and I'm doing all this stuff. However, if I never had a child, I would always regret that. And I think the moment that became like, it was my light bulb moment, that became clear to me. The rest of it was like, well, then that's just what we have to do. Then that was just so clear. The path was really clear. And so then it was just a matter of like, okay, well, how do I want to do this? And I did always I had always had the desire to try to experience pregnancy and childbirth and have my own biological child. I was not against any other form. As a matter of fact, when early on in my firefighting career, I explored being a foster parent because I thought that would be a great way to do it. But unfortunately, as a firefighter, when you're working 24 hours, you would need to have had licensed childcare for that time I'd be gone. It was just totally cost prohibitive to be able to do that at that point. But yeah, but I knew I wanted to explore that. So my neighbor, I'm really lucky to live in the Bay Area because it's just, there's so many other kinds of families that I'm around. So there's lots of resources there. And so like literally my neighbor down the block, my neighbors were these 2 women and they were going down the road of trying to get pregnant. And so they had an amazing reproductive endocrinologist that they were working with that they referred me to and that I went and met with. And that's kind of who became so it was kind of word of mouth. You know, it's not like I definitely didn't feel like I was doing this alone. I definitely felt like I was doing this with a lot of people who were all invested in the success of it. Nice.
And then, so how did you end up getting pregnant?
So I ended up using a donor. And for me, when I went to go get for the initial meeting with the RE, she was like, well, these are some tests you need to have before you start. And since either you could pay out of pocket for that here, because my insurance didn't cover her services, or you could just go and request these from your doctor. So I did all these tests first. And my feeling was, well, let's just take this as any kind of research project. Let's like thoroughly research it and get all the information before we make a decision. And so I went and did all the blood work and make sure I had, enough eggs to be able to do this. So then when I went back to her with the results, she's like, okay, I think, this could happen. And she had a list already printed out. These are the banks that I have used that I like their motility. I like their samples. I like their customer service. And you can use whoever you want, but these are the ones I really recommend. So I kind of took her word, jump of faith and took her word for it. And then it was just a matter of, there were certain things that were very important to me in terms of a donor that I was looking for. For example, my family has diabetes in its history and autoimmune diseases. So I was looking for someone that didn't have that. And also it's very important to me to have a known donor because at some point, if my children have questions, I want them to be able to know what's on the other side of their family medical history as they get older and want to have children. So those things were important to me. And that just kind of narrowed it down. And then I had friends come over and, so it sounds very cliche, but yeah, we definitely did look at, I definitely had some editorial help in picking the final results.
So you involved friends or?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I could have done this with all my friends. I mean, you have to have a sense of, I don't know. I think for me, I had to have a sense of humor with it. It's like, because we're doing something that you're kind of telling the world, you know what, for me, from my experience, I was telling the world, okay, you know what, I'm kind of giving up right now on finding the perfect mate. And it's like the clock is ticking and I need to get going on this. So I need to be able to laugh about it in order to accept it and move on. So for me, it was like the first time, I think my first insemination when I'm, lying there after everything's over on the table in my sterile gown, I remember thinking, I don't remember really this part of it in normally when you're coupled, I'm like, I don't remember this quite so sterile.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That's great. Yeah. I have put together sort of a guide on how to pick sperm donors. And I think that there's a lot of different methods. And some people, I think, really involve family and friends and have parties and, find the humor in it. And other people are like, spreadsheets and they are churning the data and going back over. And, other people see a psychic or, who knows. I just think it's really fascinating to hear the different methods. And I think what I tell people is just know how you make good decisions and try and, bring that in, or however it makes you kind of get over it and do it.
Well, you know what? And it's funny that you say that, because it was something I wanted to say too, that a big part of that was, so it was like, for that part of it, it was very social and everything. But then there was another part of it, the financial aspect of it, which was a little bit more, not clinical, but I didn't want to, I think the fertility can be a huge rabbit hole you can jump down. And financially, you could spend a lot of money because you're just thinking, it's like being at the craps table, like, if I just can play one more hand, I'm gonna get it. And, and you don't. So for me, because I'm kind of a budget oriented person, for me, it was taking a finite amount of money and saying, this is how much money I have. It's almost like a business transaction that I can spend towards this particular thing. For me, it was my tax return. I took 1 year of tax return and I said, this is the money that I'm going to spend towards this endeavor. And this includes, 4 vials of sperm. And if I'm not pregnant at the end of this money, then I have to stop and reevaluate it. But it's like there's a stopping point to reevaluate before I go on. And that, for me, that made it a little bit more, comfortable, I guess, because I knew that there was an end point to that. And then I'm not saying I couldn't have gone further. Luckily, I'm a pretty fertile person and I didn't have to worry about that. In fact, I ended up selling a couple of vials back to one of the other families. And we have a little grouping of people who all use the same donor. And I ended up selling a couple of vials to someone else because I didn't need them. But yeah, it really helped to have an endpoint and not just to go in with an open credit card and let's go. Because that would have been a mistake for me.
Yeah, I love that you say that. I approached it similarly. I mean, in my case, I was given sort of really bad odds and I wasn't willing. They told me basically from the outset, you need to use donor eggs. And I couldn't wrap my brain around it. And so I basically did the exact same thing. I was like, okay, I'm going to spend this amount of money basically rolling the dice and I set out the things that I needed to do to feel like I had done my best at trying to use my own eggs. And at the end of that, I was like, okay, I think it's very easy to get sucked into.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Just try this one more thing. So I always tell people to frame it not from do everything possible, but do what you need to do in order to feel your best. Because the possible, if you did everything that's possible, you could be doing this for a really long time and throwing. So I think that's a good point to hear.
And we also have to remember that it's one thing to get pregnant. You got to raise that baby and you need some money to raise that baby and, paying, whatever it is on a loan that you had to take out. I mean, it's great if you can do it. I didn't want to be saddled with that because as a result, because I was not in debt, getting pregnant meant I could use the money to stay off as long as I could.
That's
off
great.
Of work and enjoy that baby.
Right. So then it sounds as though you got pregnant via IUI for your first child.
Yes.
Pretty quickly, or how many IUIs did you have to do?
Yeah, no, I was really lucky. In both pregnancies, I got pregnant quite quickly and didn't use any. It didn't use anything. Although after the second, so I got pregnant with my first one after the second insemination, and at that visit, my doctor said, if we don't get pregnant on this one, we are going to probably want to look at maybe using some fertility drugs, which it was interesting. That hadn't come up to me yet. So it was kind of like, oh, okay, I got to sit with that and see how I feel about that. And I didn't have to worry about it because I did get pregnant on that one. So I got pregnant on the second one with just tracking my cycle.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was lucky.
And then your second And that was around 40 even.
That was 40. Yeah.
Wow.
And then my second, I was like 44. And my second, I used a known donor. And that one was just more traditional method of insemination. And that actually just happened. It was just like the first time we decided to have sex.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
And then do you mind talking a little bit about what your relationship is with that donor now?
You know what? He has chosen to not be in the picture.
So do you have any regrets around how you became a mother?
I don't. In fact, it's so funny. I tell people, these are the things I tell people when they are like, hey, how is that going? I say, I look at people, especially in that first year of infancy, who have to be present and take care of that baby all day, and then, keep this being alive all day, and then put them to bed, and then sit down on the couch, and then look across the room at this other adult person who needs a relationship with them. I don't know how they do it. I do not know how they do it. I feel like staying off. I feel like that first year, it was amazing being by myself because I didn't have to try to split my focus of adult relationship versus relationship with my child. I could just be totally immersed in babyhood, and it was great. Having said that, I feel like you really need a village, because there are times, I remember the first time my oldest had her first vaccinations, she spiked a fever and I did not have any Tylenol in the house or baby fever medication in the house. And I had to go out and get it. And it's like, okay, who stays with the baby right now? I don't want to drag this baby out in the middle of the night. And luckily I had a neighbor who could come over and just watch her sleep while I went and got it and came back. I also tell people that I think that being a single mother by choice versus being a single mother by divorce or anything, it's just a different way of looking at it. I say the difference is like losing your sight later in life versus being blind from birth. I don't know any different. Mm-hmm. I don't know what it's like to have a partner. I don't know what it's like to have someone take the kids to the park so I can have a bubble bath. I don't know. So for me, it's great. It's just what my known is. I do wish I would have started earlier. I wish I would have started in my 30s. And just because I'm having so much fun with them now, I want to just keep having fun with them as long as I can.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. I feel like all of that, I feel very similarly. It's like that first year when you're so intensely connected to your child. I feel like it feels so natural to have there be no other relationship that you're trying to attend to. So I totally get it. So what would you say is the most surprising thing about your path and how things turned out?
I think, first of all, the surprising thing is how amazing I think my girls are. And granted, I'm a mom. I'm supposed to think they're amazing, but I have friends tell me they're amazing. So I know that they're amazing. But I feel like I look at my kids sometime and I think, I didn't do this. Mm. There's no way I raised kids this great, because they're awesome kids. They're going to be going places in life. And I told my oldest one, because, she's about to start high school next year. And I said, and middle school is a challenging kind of really emotionally unsettling time to be in. I said, when you come into your own, I'm going to just be blown away with what you do, because already what she attempts to go and do. And then it's like seeing this in middle school, it's like, wow, when you get into high school and college and you really see how amazing you are, you're going to just blow me away. But how much I love hanging out with them as they get older. It's like, I love my babies, and I loved the toddler years and all those fun things. But as they get older and we're in the middle of the teens, they're still fun. Granted, they get snarky and they don't have great days and they roll their eyes at me and I get but you know what? I just call them on it. If you keep breathing that heavily, a lung might come out. So I think I look at them and I just am excited to see where their path is going, because I know where my path went, and now it's like they're on this path. And I told somebody the other day, I said, I feel kind of like a curler, the Olympic sport. I said, because I feel like I'm the guy with the big concrete or the big granite curling thing. And he's on his knees and he's looking down the lane, and he's pushing the stone out, and he releases it so slowly. And he's looking the whole time. And I said, I just feel like I'm right there. I'm just, especially my oldest one, I'm just like that slow release of the curling stone. And then I said, if there's going to be a time where I'm going to get up and I'm going to be the guys with the brooms that are, scrubbing furiously to keep the stone going down the right path. But I said, right now, that's what I feel. I'm that curler is just releasing it. And it's so exciting. It's just such an exciting time.
That's so cool. So do you think you're like being single, how has it sort of changed your relationship with your kids? And can you talk a little bit about, I think I have still a very young child, so it's interesting to hear from someone who has older kids, what it's like or what has come up over time around being a single mom with two girls?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yeah. Because, you just made me kind of think about it. When they were younger, especially after I had my second one, I would get a lot of, I wish we had a dad. I got a lot of that. I wish we had a dad. But then what I would do is instead of feeling like, I think sometimes we tend to take that on and make us and feel bad about it or whatever. I would say to my daughter, what would a dad do? And inevitably it would be, a dad would clean the house so you could go play with us, or a dad would go grocery shopping, or a dad would go work so you could stay home with us. It would be this fictitious dad would always be doing the stuff so I could be home with them. And it kind of was nice to see that, because I realized that it's not so much that they needed a dad as they needed their mom a little bit more. And sometimes I could do that, sometimes I couldn't. And then as they've gotten older now, especially now that they're at an age where I can kind of leave them at home. My oldest daughter babysits and my youngest daughter's pretty responsible. So I can leave them at home for an hour or so. And then so the other day I was like, so what do you girls think about mom starting to date? Because let's see, I maybe have gone on a couple dates, but it would be like things that were very, very superficial. And then I would have just met them somewhere and they wouldn't have come to the house. I wouldn't even let my kids know about it. Because I feel like my big thing, a few things that when I was pregnant, I kind of thought about things. And one of the big things was I want our house to be a place of safety and refuge, and bringing people in the house and back and forth just didn't feel safe for me. So my dating life was very separate from my parenting life. And so the other day I was saying, what do you guys think about mom, maybe starting to date again? And they were like, no. I'm like, well, why not? She goes, well, we like having you all to ourselves. I'm like, okay, well that's going to stop pretty soon. So now I'm kind of getting there, but I have to say around dating, the other thing too is I work in a very non-traditional job and I work around men all the time. So I feel like I kind of have a lot of time with guys. And so I don't really feel the need to date right now. And now I'm kind of feeling like I'm more interested in it. But up to that point, it's like, I just feel like the thought of like staying up till 10 o'clock and telling people your whole life, like doing that first date interview, it just sounds like incredibly not fun for me.
And have you dated at all since your kids have been born, or?
A couple times, but nothing really to write home about. And you know what? And once again, it's like, I really do feel like if I date, if I meet someone, that's great. If I don't meet anyone, I'm feeling okay. I've got tons of friends and a very active life. And it's like, it's now that I've had the kids, that kind of fierce pushing to couple is kind of gone. It's like, okay, that's fine.
Yeah. Again, I completely agree so far, at least anyways. So can you talk a little bit more about how you've approached talking about having like a donor or having donor siblings, or is that a conversation you guys regularly have? Or
well, you know what, I have a group of a few of us that have used the same donor, and we've all gotten in contact. And I've told the girls that they have like half siblings that use the sthe donor, and there's been a lot of times where people have gotten together and they've gotten groups, and it just has not worked out. I'd be open for it. Yeah, I told the girls from the get-go, I've told them that, we're a mom and kid family, and that their story. Well, I told my oldest daughter's story. My youngest one kind of just assumes. And to the point, every birthday, I used to tell my oldest daughter, this is really what I wanted, and I really wanted to have a family, and we were here. And to the point, she's like, I don't want to hear my story again. Don't tell me my story again. Done. But yeah, we've always been very knowing that when the girls turn 18, they will be allowed to, I'll give them all the information and they can contact if they want to do that. That becomes their journey. If they want to contact the donor, that's their journey, and they take that on. And that's when I step out. Let's see. And then you talked about it, because my big thing is making sure that they're doing okay with their peer groups around their story. And so that begins before they're born, because I think that the biggest part is that you as a parent have to be okay with your journey before your children can be okay with their journey. So you have to be okay, and you have to not feel shame or being uncomfortable when someone says, so how's your husband liking this or whatever. It's like, you have to be okay. And one of the ways we did it for me is I never have said we don't have a dad or we're missing a dad or something. I've always just said in response to adults and children, because I think it's actually a really good response for children when they're like, hey, where's so-and-so's dad? And it's like, well, you know what? We're a mom and kid family. And that usually is all they need. So I never say we don't have a dad. I just always respond that way. And if they keep asking it, I just keep repeating it. Eventually, hopefully, they figure it out. But once again, luckily, where I'm living in the Bay Area, there's a lot of different family dynamics and a lot of different families. And so they're all exposed. And I've always said to my children, as long as there's love, it's a family. It doesn't matter who's in it. As long as there's love, it's a family. And so we started that very young, and that kind of went on. My daughter, my oldest daughter, has a very good friend of hers right now who is a single mother, or is a child of a single mother. And her mother is very adamant that she doesn't want her daughter to ever know who the donor is. And that's just another way of doing it. And so it's kind of interesting for my oldest daughter, for the first time, she's seeing, oh, there's another way I could look at this. And it's kind of nice to have that support. And then also, really, they've never, I don't know, I think sometimes single mothers, we try so hard to give our children what we would consider a normal childhood that in some ways, I think we do more than most more traditional families might. No, I think more present. I think more adventures. I think just more like those, like, I'm going to volunteer in the classroom and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. And so we've been there. And now that my kids are getting into teenage years, and this might be what your son will find out too, a lot of our friends and a lot of their classmates are parents or children are divorced now. And so they're constantly trying to figure out, they're constantly being shuttled back and forth from one family to the other family. And so I think my children at one point said, I like the fact that I don't have to go back and forth between two households and I'm just right here. Mm-hmm. So, I think there's pluses and minuses for every situation. And the big thing is to not judge anything, just be like, well, this is what we are. This is what we are right now. And I think it's also to say, hey, you know what? I really like our family the way it is. And that's really wonderful. Mm-hmm. But you have to be okay with that from the get-go, because if you're not okay with it, your kids, be comfortable with your choice before the baby is born. Because if you accept it, other people will accept it and your child will accept it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. Any advice on how to, like, if you were feeling uncomfortable about your choice or still feeling some sort of shame or regret, would you have any advice for moms?
Yeah, I think you need to, first of all, own it and not be ashamed of your ashaming. You need to own it and know that it's not just something that just automatically is going to be, okay, here we go. I mean, I think you consciously have to mourn your decision. You have to mourn the fact that your dream since you were a childhood of the big wedding and the person with you that's going to be with you all the time is not going to be there. And then you have to accept the new path you're going down. I mean, and one thing I can say as someone now in my 50s, and that is your path is constantly changing in life. And you have to be open to going down a different path if it presents itself. Because sometimes you don't have a choice, and you have to be okay to do it, and you have to be flexible to do it. And sometimes that means getting help down that path, whether it's a therapist, whether it's journaling, whether it's talking to friends. But you need to, the more you talk about it, the easier it's going to be. The first time I had to say I'm a single mother by choice did not come out as easily as it does now. Or the first time that I had to say, oh, we're a mom and kid family, and not feel like, that took a while. It didn't come naturally. But now it's like, I just look at it I mean, part of it's the fact I think being in a non-traditional job kind of made it easier to go down a non-traditional path for motherhood. Having said that, I also work around a lot of very traditional males, so it was a little interesting. But I'm lucky in that I've had a lot of support, or maybe I just don't know if I don't have support. Maybe I'm just kind of have the blinders on and like, that's where I'm going. You can be with me, or you can jump off.
Nice. So can you talk a little bit about how I know as a firefighter, you have I don't know if it's 24-hour shifts or even longer,
right.
How you were able to juggle that kind of job with having kids and how you got help?
Yeah. Well, I feel like I was lucky in that my job is 9 days of 24-hour shifts, and that's my full-time job. So I feel like I was blessed because that meant I had 20 days of being a mom as a full-time job. So the hard part about that, and especially it was much harder when my children were babies because that was hard. I was lucky. I took a year off for each girl. So I was able to take a year off for my oldest, a year off for my youngest. Wow. So when I was going back to work, it wasn't like I was leaving a 4-week-old, that was helpful. They were already on solids and they were, moving, and it was great. Finding childcare was a challenge. I think you have to think outside the box. You have to think okay, I'm not taking my kid into a childcare center or a home thing. But what I would do, I would just start looking at this is what I need. This is what I can afford. And can anybody that I trust do that? And for me, finding childcare that I trusted was huge because then I could go to work and I wasn't, and believe me, we had one childcare experience that didn't work out. It was just the stress of being at work and let's say doing resuscitation and having my phone ring and hoping that it wasn't the childcare person calling to complain about my daughter was so that didn't last very long. But so for me, it worked to find people. I just used in fact, I'm still doing that. I usually go out amongst my Facebook community. I just spread the word of all the different, my church community, my scout community, all my friends. I just spread the word out. And usually so far, I've been really lucky. Someone's always come up during that, doing that. And as a result, I had some amazing child care providers that helped me learn how to be a mom. The first woman who watched my first child, she was a mother of 4 daughters. And to this day, I'd say she was my mothering mentor because she taught me at this age, when they're 3 and 4, and it's all about redirection and, and I never would have known that. It was just oh, this is awesome. And then she would just help set boundaries with my daughter. And then I was able to kind of oh, that's how you do that. Because, child motherhood doesn't come normal. It's not a natural thing. You have to work at it and figure out what the heck you're doing. And then inevitably, all the childcare providers that watch my children starts out as a business transaction. And now they're just part of our family. That's great.
That's great. That's wonderful to hear. So I guess you've probably had to have people who, stay at your house and that sort of thing and take the kids to school and...
Well, you know what? Actually, up until just 3 years ago, I think, my childcare person lived a half a block from our elementary school. So what we would do is we'd get up in the morning. I'd have to wake them up at 5:30 in the morning, and we'd go over to their house, and she had it all set up with she was wonderful and made their had got beds and bedding for them and made them feel like it was part of their house. And basically they would just come into their family for the 24 hours when I was at work. And that was really lovely to have. And as a result, coincidentally, all the childcare people that I've had have been a traditional home life. So there's been a male figure to kind of, be that, and I wouldn't say father figure, but just kind of be that male role model. So they've had some interaction with, that male dynamic, which is good. I think I feel is good. And then after that, as my daughter and my older daughter went into middle school, then it became more of, and my childcare provider left to pursue education. She was a mom herself, and she decided for her it was great because she was a mom. And this way she could stay home and she could continue to mother her son and be a stay-at-home mom. And I was providing a little income for her. And then she decided actually after that she wanted to go back and pursue a degree And so then we found a younger, like college aged girl who could come in. And at that point they were getting older and they're like, I don't want to wake up at 5:30 in the morning anymore. And so then we were able to have her come in, the childcare person come in the mornings, and then kind of, it all kind of switched. So then it came out of my house, which was nice also, but also not so nice too, because then that meant I had to get up and clean my house and make sure everything was clean. Before it was easy just to leave and the laundry's on the couch and, there's some dishes in the sink. It's all great. And then all of a sudden like, oh, now I got people in my house. And then the circumstances of my job has changed. So now in my job, I'm working more of a traditional work schedule of 5 days a week. And so now it's really just needing someone to pick up and drop off my kids from school.
Right.
Because once they're all home, they can be home until I get home. And now I have weekends and nights and holidays. It's so nice.
Mm-hmm. Cool. That's helpful. I think it's really good for people to hear, just the thinking outside the box, as you say, and figuring out the creative solutions, right? That there is a solution to everything. Everything is figure-outable.
Yes, exactly.
And then would you mind talking a little bit about the choice to have 2 kids and how that came about for you?
Sure. You know what? I was totally happy with having one child until my one child was about 2. And then all of a sudden, I came from a family of 2 girls, and my sister and I have a very close relationship. And I just remember thinking, I really want to have another baby. I really want my child to have a sibling. And also my oldest daughter was like, I want a baby sister. Of course, now at 13 and almost 14 and 10, they're like, I don't know why I asked you for a baby sister. Like when they get mad, they're like, ah. But no, and I wanted them to have that relationship. And also I think for me, knowing that I'm the only one, I'm the only parent, if something happens to me, that would just leave my daughter on her own. And not that she would be on her own, but and I don't know, for some reason it didn't feel good to me. But that was my choice. And, I feel that everybody has to make their own choice for that. Yeah. So I feel like, it's kind of funny. I feel like being a mother, it's been a really defining role for me and learning. I had to decide what gifts I wanted to give my kids. Like, for me, I feel my personal philosophy is we get to give like about 2 gifts to our kids, clothing and love and food. That's not gifts. That's basic living, but you get to give these 2 gifts and you get to decide what it is you want to give. And for me, I wanted to give my children the gift of empathy and the gift of adventure. And so it's been really exciting to be able to give that to them. And also I think as a mother, we have to constantly examine our own morals and ethics, because that's what we're passing on to our kids. And so it made me like have to stop for a moment and look at like, what's important to me? Why is it important to me? What do I want my kids? What do I want my kids to be like? And then pass that stuff on to them. I feel like I can do anything because my kids think I can do anything.
That's awesome. So in hindsight, knowing what you know now, 13 years into motherhood, would you do anything differently?
Yeah, I would definitely start earlier. And then I think I'd just start earlier. I think I think I would just start earlier. I think I'm not tooting my own horn. I think we've done a pretty good job, my kids and I. We've done it together. We're doing it. We're making it through. And you know what? And I also think it's important to admit when it doesn't go as well. I think it's okay to say to your kids, you know what? We had a really hard day today. And it's okay. Because you know what? We'll have a better day tomorrow. Or we won't, but we are all still here. We're all still love. I always emphasize the love. There's always love. As long as there's love in the family, we're doing good.
Mm-hmm.
Well, because a lot of times your kids get mad at you. And now as they get older, especially as they get like towards their teens, they're starting to learn and they're starting to feel guilty about it. They'll get mad at you or they'll yell at you or whatever. They'll feel guilty. And it's nice when I can hear them come up and say, I'm sorry, especially with my youngest one that just started. I'm very excited about that, and take responsibility. And then my response to that is, honey, we're still together. We love each other. And as long as there's love, all is good.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome. And when you say you wish you had started earlier, tell us why you wish you had started earlier.
Well, going through puberty and menopause at the same time is not an easy thing. You really have to kind of watch the hormones are coming in and going out at the same time. So I think when you start earlier, you've got a lot of, it's a toss up. When you're younger, like in your 20s, you've got a lot of energy and you've got a lot of energy to take care of a baby. However, you're still trying to unpack your own baggage from your childhood and sort through it. So you might not have all the patience and parenting skills. Some people do, but I don't know if I would have. My 40s, I definitely have a lot more patience. When it was in the throes of motherhood, I definitely had a lot more patience and a lot more parenting skills, but, not as much energy. So it's just a toss up and everybody's different.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. I just think I know it's the thing I say too, as I wish I had started earlier. I sort of debated around the decision for so long, and it felt so much like I was making this decision that I had failed at partnerhood, and it was so tied up with that I think that's now from the other side. I'm so happy being a single mom that's why I wish I had done it sooner. But I just think it's nice for people to sort of hear. I think when you're on the precipice of that decision, it's hard to like just do it and go for it.
Right. You know what? It's so funny. You said that in a very interesting way, that you had kind of coupled the failure of finding a partner with the need to start single. I never did that. I just kind of was like, okay, you know what? I need to let that go and focus on this now. It's like, I never said like, I never felt like a failure. I just was like, yeah, you know what? That's not a priority now.
Mm-hmm.
This is a priority now.
Right.
So once again, different path, and you just have to kind of go down it and see where it takes you.
Mm-hmm. So what advice would you give someone if they were at that precipice trying to decide whether or not to move forward in becoming a single mom, and they're worried and confused and don't know what to do?
You know what? I think I would reach out. I would get professional help to work through the issues so you can get to the other side. I think sometimes we're so frozen in fear, we're afraid to move, but movement either way can be so freeing. And so you have to do whatever it takes, whether it's journaling or therapy or friends or just kind of process or reading books. I mean, and also get on there's so many single mother groups out there to get on and start looking at people and listening to them and seeing what they're like. Because I'll guarantee you there's people out there that are also thinking and worrying about stuff as well. But I think for me, it was important to look down the road and see how I envision how I saw my life 15 years from now. And if I felt really good looking at my life without children in it, and I felt like great, then that's a great choice. I think some people not everyone's meant to have children, and that's okay. But I think you need to consciously own your decision. I think that would be my final takeaway on that. You need to consciously own your decision, whether you're deciding to have children or deciding to not have children. You need to consciously make that decision instead of just kind of flip-flopping and dilly-dallying until it's too late, and then let that be your decision, because that will always be an unsettled decision for you.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas if you consciously choose to not have children, you've made that decision, you're good with it, let's move on. Or if you consciously choose to have children, that's it's like definitive.
Mm-hmm.
And that helps. And I think it helps us feel more settled.
Yeah, I love that. That's awesome. Thank you. So in what ways has being a mother been different than you expected?
I just think how much it's been a growth process for me. I think that's kind of I kind of expected, especially now that they're getting older, there's a lot more, not pushback, but I think holding me accountable to things. Like, it's like now as they're getting older and they're seeing that their mom is not this perfect super person, and that I have to be okay with saying, no, I'm not. And that's okay. But you still have to listen to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think just the constant self-exploration that you as a mother have to go through to make sure that you're teaching your children. And also, this is a big one, learning how to say no and learning to ask for help. That was a huge one. I have always been an independent person, and I always was like, I can do it. And to be able to humble yourself and say, I need you to give me the gift of help. Mm. That is a great gift that you're allowing someone to give you. And it's a wonderful thing. And being able to say that, and also being able to say no, that was a big one too. Was also That's what I've learned. That's how I've learned about being a mother. Yeah.
That's awesome. And what do you love most about being a mom? I know you talked about this a little bit before.
Yeah, I think just the laughter and snuggles and piling into mom's bed first thing in the morning, and just the joy. The joy.
And what would you say you like least about being a mother?
Childcare, having to find it, having to keep it, having to find backup. I'm in the middle of it, in case you didn't realize.
No, you were so upbeat about childcare before.
Well, it's great, but right now I'm in the middle of our childcare situation just ended, and I'm in the middle of trying to find another person who it was just not a great fit, and so now I'm in the middle of trying to find another person who's a better fit. And I think at this stage the girls respond better to childcare. It always seems to be girls that seem to respond better to women who are younger, like in college age, because they like having the cool, hip, young focus when, it's not mom. And it's just for a little bit. So it's trying to find that right now it always seems to be a process.
Yes, I hear you. I think my son already enjoys the younger people. It's funny.
I know. Anybody that's not mom.
Yeah. Any other advice you would give to other women or anything else you'd like to add at this point?
Yeah, I think that my advice would be, because I wrote a couple of things down, stay off for as long as you can with your babies, because you can't get that time back. So for me, I was really lucky. I was able to stay off for a year with each of them. And I have a specific story. I remember my oldest one, she was crawling. So she was probably 8 months, maybe. And I remember crawling around the living room and watching her. And she crawled over to our sofa table, which kind of is in line with the hallway. And she kind of was trying to pull herself up, and she looked down the hallway. And I watched her figure out that all these rooms that she'd been in are connected. And I remember just watching her, that process. And she took off down the hallway whoa, look at this. She just all of a sudden it was like this whole and I just feel like if I had not been off for that, I would have missed that. So, I would say if you can stay off as long as you can, don't be in a hurry to get back. It'll all be there. It'll all be waiting. Unfortunately, our country has, not a great track record of letting mothers stay off with their children, which other countries do, which I wish we could adopt those. And also it's okay to say I was wrong, I think, as a mother, and say, you know what, you're right. I was wrong. I apologize. Because you're teaching your children how to own up when they make mistakes. We're not all perfect. And I also say to try to avoid saying to kids and others, we don't have a dad, which I've talked about earlier. It implies that, that there's an absence or that we're missing out. I always just say we're a mom and kid family. And then be comfortable with your choice before the baby is born. If you accept it, other people will. Your child will as well. That's my.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been so lovely talking to someone who's a little further down the journey and has as much parenting wisdom as you do. I really appreciate your time. If you liked today's episode, please head over to iTunes or Stitcher to subscribe and leave a review. I so appreciate your support to spread the word about this project. If you'd like to hear more about my journey, please read my memoir, Motherhood Reimagined, When Becoming a Mother Doesn't Go As Planned. It's available everywhere books are sold. Next week, I'm joined by Marnie, another woman who used double donors and has an amazing story about how she ended up using the same donor as a great friend of hers. It's a great show, so don't miss it. See you next week. Bye for now.